Imagine, building a life that you love,
Mm-hmm.
only to have it just shattered
Yeah.
by someone you thought you knew.
Right.
This is the story of Akshara Menon.
Okay.
She was a 27-year-old software engineer in Bengaluru,
Mm-hmm.
and her life was tragically cut short back in 2019.
Oh, wow.
What began as a promising romance, kind of like we see in the movies and stuff,
Yeah.
turned into just a nightmare of obsession and violence,
Right.
and left behind a trail of heartbreak and really a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Love series.
It's a case that really highlights, I think, the dark side of human nature and how easily love can twist into something really sinister.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
So let's start by getting to know Akshar a little bit.
okay.
What kind of person was she?
Well, from all accounts, she was just a bright light.
Okay.
I mean, she had moved to Bengaluru from Kerala to
Mhm.
pursue her dreams,
Yeah.
and she was thriving there.
Okay.
She was successful in her career.
Had a close circle of friends.
Yeah.
And was known for her kindness and infectious energy.
Yeah.
She was living a life full of promise, and that's what makes this whole story so utterly heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's devastating to think that someone so full of life could be taken away in such a brutal way.
Yeah.
Tell me about the man that kind of entered her life, Rahul Desai.
Okay, so Rahul was a 30-year-old graphic designer.
Huh.
They met through mutual friends,
Mm-hmm.
and in the beginning, their relationship seems like any other, full of romance and shared laughter.
Yeah, of course.
But as time went on, a darker side of Rahul began to emerge.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Sure.
What were the first signs that something was amiss?
Well, Rahul's behavior gradually became more controlling and possessive.
Okay.
He started questioning Akshara's friendships,
Mm-hmm.
accusing her of neglecting him for her work.
Right.
It's a classic tactic abusers use, right?
Yeah.
Isolating the victim to gain more control.
They make the victim dependent on them,
Yeah.
eroding their self-worth.
That's a chilling thought.
Yeah,
It's almost like a slow and insidious process of just manipulation.
it is. It is.
Did Akshara confide in anyone
Mm.
about this change in Rahul?
Unfortunately, like many victims of emotional abuse,
Right.
Akshara initially kept her troubles to herself.
Okay.
Her friends noticed she seemed withdrawn and stressed,
Yeah.
but she was hesitant to open up about what was happening.
It's so common, isn't it?
It is.
The silence, the shame,
Right.
the hope that things will somehow get better on their own.
Yeah.
But in Akshara's case, they didn't.
Sadly, no.
At what point did she realize she needed to get out of this relationship?
It seems that the turning point came when Akshara realized that Rahul's possessiveness was stifling her. She was
Right.
a woman with dreams and ambitions,
Mm.
and she couldn't thrive in an environment where
Right.
she was constantly being controlled and belittled.
Yeah.
So she decided to end the relationship.
And how did Rahul react to that?
He refused to accept it.
Oh, wow.
Rahul bombarded her with calls and messages, pleading with her to reconsider.
Yeah.
He started showing up unannounced at her apartment,
Right.
desperate to win her back.
It's unsettling how quickly someone's love
Mm-hmm.
can morph into an unhealthy obsession.
Right.
Did Akshara try to reason with him at all
She did.
to explain that it was over?
She tried to make him understand that she needed space,
Yeah.
that she needed to move on,
Mm-hmm.
but he was consumed by his own feelings of rejection
Right.
and couldn't grasp the reality of the situation.
Mhm.
He became fixated on the idea that she was slipping away from him,
Mm-hmm.
and that fixation began to fuel a dangerous rage.
This sounds like classic stalking behavior,
Yeah,
completely disregarding her wishes and boundaries.
absolutely.
Does anyone try to intervene?
Her friends were incredibly worried
Yeah.
and urged her to take steps to protect herself.
Oh.
They offered to stay with her, to help her file a police report.
Right.
But Akshara, like many victims in these situations,
Yeah.
held on to a sliver of hope that he would eventually calm down
Right.
and accept her decision.
Yeah.
Sadly, that hope proved to be misplaced.
So things escalated from there.
They did, yeah.
What happened next?
On the evening of September 14th, 2019,
Okay.
Akshara returned home from work,
Mhm.
completely unaware that Rahul was lurking outside her apartment building, just waiting for her.
Oh, wow.
He had been consumed by his anger and obsession,
Right.
and that night, those dark emotions just boiled over.
I imagine the details of what happened that night are quite disturbing.
They are.
What can you tell us about the events that unfolded?
Well, as Akshara entered her building, Rahul followed closely behind.
Oh.
Witnesses later reported seeing them arguing in the hallway outside her apartment.
Mm-hmm.
The raised voices and sounds of a struggle
Right.
alerted neighbors that something was terribly wrong.
It's horrifying to think that while people nearby were aware of the commotion, this tragedy was unfolding behind closed doors.
Right.
What did those who rushed to help find?
Well, when they finally managed to get inside Akshara's apartment, the scene was devastating.
Yeah.
Akshara was lying on the floor,
Well-
suffering from multiple stab wounds.
Oh, wow.
It was a brutal and frenzied attack.
Yeah.
Rahul, however, was gone.
It's chilling to imagine the chaos and terror of that scene.
Yeah.
Did anyone witness the actual attack? Or did Rahul manage to escape unnoticed?
While no one witnessed the stabbing itself,
Oh, okay.
several people saw Rahul fleeing the building immediately after the attack.
Right.
The police were called immediately,
Yeah.
and a manhunt for Rahul began.
So the police had a clear suspect from the very beginning.
They did, yeah.
Did they have any trouble tracking him down?
Thankfully, no.
Okay.
Within 48 hours,
Wow.
Rahul was apprehended at a relative's house in Mysuru. It seems he was trying to disappear to escape the consequences of his actions.
Yeah.
But the police were swift in their pursuit.
I can only imagine the mixture of relief and grief that Akshara's loved ones must have felt upon hearing the news of his capture.
Right.
Did the police uncover any further evidence that connected Rahul to the crime once they had him in custody?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The evidence against Rahul was overwhelming.
Yeah.
The forensic team discovered his fingerprints on the murder weapon,
Okay.
a knife recovered from the crime scene, and perhaps even more damning,
Right.
they found a series of threatening messages and calls from Rahul on Akshara's phone.
Oh, wow.
You know, it's one thing to have a suspect,
Right.
but when the evidence starts piling up like that,
Yeah.
it really paints a clear picture of what happened.
Did Rahul confess to the crime?
He did, yes.
A confession doesn't always bring closure, does it?
It doesn't.
It confirms the act, but it doesn't explain the why.
Right.
Did Rahul's confession shed any light on his motives?
In his confession, Rahul claimed he was driven by a sense of betrayal and rage. He couldn't comprehend or accept Akshara's decision to end the relationship.
Okay.
His possessiveness had twisted into a deadly obsession,
Right.
and he lashed out in the most horrific way imaginable.
It's a stark reminder that sometimes the people closest to us can be capable of unimaginable cruelty.
It's true.
What happened next? Did the case go to trial?
Yes, the trial began in early 2020,
Okay.
and it garnered significant public attention.
Yeah.
The prosecution presented a compelling case, laying out the evidence of Rahul's stalking behavior, the
Wow.
threatening messages,
Yeah.
the forensic evidence, and his confession.
Okay.
They argued that this was a clear case of premeditated murder.
What about the defense?
Sure.
How did they attempt to counter such strong evidence?
The defense attempted to portray Rahul as emotionally distraught,
Okay.
arguing that the murder was a crime of passion
Yeah.
committed in a moment of overwhelming grief and despair. They claimed that he hadn't planned to kill Akshara,
Yeah.
that it was a spontaneous act fueled by his uncontrollable emotions.
Did the jury find this argument convincing?
No, they did not.
Yeah.
The evidence of premeditation,
Yeah.
particularly the fact that he brought a knife to Akshara's apartment,
Right.
contradicted the defense's claims.
Mm-hmm.
The jury saw through the attempt to downplay the severity of his actions
Okay.
and ultimately delivered a verdict that reflected the gravity of the crime.
So justice was served for Akshara. What was the outcome of the trial?
Yes, in mid-2020,
Okay.
Rahul Desai was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment.
Wow.
The judge, in delivering the sentence,
Yeah.
condemned Rahul's actions as a brutal and senseless act of violence fueled by possessiveness and an inability to accept the end of a relationship.
It's a small consolation,
Yeah,
but at least he's being held accountable for taking a life and causing so much pain.
right.
Akshara's story is a chilling reminder of how dangerous toxic relationships can be.
It is, yeah.
What can we learn from this case? How can we prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future?
Well, this case, I think, really highlights the importance of recognizing the red flags of toxic relationships
Right.
before they escalate into something dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of those signs? What are some of the signs
Right.
that someone might be in an unhealthy or abusive relationship?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Early intervention is key.
Okay.
One of the biggest warning signs, I think, is controlling behavior.
Yeah.
If your partner constantly questions your whereabouts,
Right.
tries to isolate you from your friends and family, or dictates what you wear or how you spend your time,
Yeah.
those are huge red flags.
It's almost as if they're trying to shrink your world to
Exactly.
make you completely dependent on them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They chip away at your independence
Yeah.
and self-esteem, making it harder for you to leave the relationship.
Another major red flag, I think, is excessive jealousy
Oh,
or
yeah.
possessiveness.
For sure.
If your partner constantly accuses you of flirting or cheating,
Right.
monitors your phone and social media, or gets angry when you spend time with anyone else,
Yeah.
that's a sign that they don't trust you and
yeah.
are trying to control you.
Exactly.
You might be thinking, this could never happen to me.
Yeah.
But these patterns are often subtle at first.
Right.
Recognizing the signs is crucial.
That's such an important point.
Yeah.
Abusive relationships rarely start with overt violence.
Right.
It's a gradual process of manipulation and control that can be hard to recognize, especially if you're in love.
And it's important to remember that abuse isn't always physical.
Exactly.
The emotional and psychological scars can be just as devastating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Constant criticism,
Right.
humiliation, name-calling,
Yeah.
gaslighting. These are all forms of emotional abuse. That can erode a person's sense of self-worth
Yeah.
and make them feel trapped.
So what advice would you give to someone who finds themselves in a toxic or abusive relationship?
First and foremost, acknowledge that there's a problem.
Okay.
It's easy to make excuses for someone's behavior,
Yeah.
to blame yourself, or to hope things will magically change.
Right.
But it's essential to be honest with yourself about what's happening.
And then what's the next step?
Reach out for help.
Okay.
Talk to a trusted friend, family member,
Yeah.
therapist, or counselor.
Okay.
There are also numerous hotlines and support groups dedicated to helping people escape abusive relationships.
Remember, you are not alone.
Right.
And you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness.
Absolutely.
Leaving an abusive relationship can be incredibly difficult.
It can.
Even terrifying.
Right.
But it's often the bravest and most important decision someone can make.
You're right. It takes immense strength and courage to break free from that cycle of abuse. And while the legal system can provide some level of protection,
Right.
it's crucial that we as a society do more to support victims and prevent these tragedies from happening in the first place.
Akshara's family has been working tirelessly to turn their grief into a force for good, haven't they?
They have, yes.
Yeah.
In the aftermath of her death, they established a foundation in her name to raise awareness about toxic relationships
Right.
and advocate for stricter laws against stalking and harassment.
Right.
Their hope is to prevent other families from experiencing the same unimaginable pain.
Their dedication is truly inspiring.
Yeah.
Akshara's story is a stark reminder that love should never come at the cost of your safety or well-being. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please reach out for help.
Yeah.
There are resources available, and you don't have to go through this alone. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and open communication. Never settle for anything less.
That's right.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Bengaluru Apartment Stabbing Case.
Yeah.
It's a story that sheds light on the dark side of human behavior, but also underscores the importance of awareness, prevention, and support for victims of abuse.
If you found this episode insightful, be sure to follow CrimePod Castle and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more chilling tales of love, obsession, and deadly consequences.
Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and stay vigilant.